Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review for Jade War by Fonda Lee. Before I keep talking about Jade War, I also should tell you what the Greenbone Saga is about. The Greenbone Saga is a trilogy starting with Jade City. I'm pretty sure you might know what this book is about if you're watching my review for the sequel, but just in case, Jade City is set in this fictional urban fantasy-like setting in which there is a magical rock, jade, that can enhance the ability of like certain trained warriors and like can enhance fighting abilities. And at the start of the book, we are following a very, very fragile peace among the like ruling clans. And we follow the four Call siblings who kind of get thrust into roles that they don't necessarily want to fight in this sort of like ground level war, while also being worried about like foreign invasion and occupation possibly happening. I love it a lot. I have a review for Jade City if you're interested. So in terms of the actual review for Jade War, I am so impressed with the quality of writing that Fonda Lee has done here. The quality of storytelling is fantastic. Jade War is such an elevated version of Jade City, and I can't get enough of it. I absolutely love how this works as a sequel. It goes in a way that I don't think you may necessarily be expecting. We get a huge expansion into the world and the different nations around it, and how conflicts in other nations are actually sort of turning inward, and how their very small island has a huge role to play in like international warfare. I absolutely love how this just zooms out and you get such a clear picture of everything that's going on. I absolutely love the political stuff that is wrapped up into the world and the world building. There's a lot of working with different nations, towing the line and doing the like thinnest tightrope walk between keeping everyone happy and how one small thing can just break everything apart. The story itself is just so incredibly tense that I was stressed reading it the whole time. The thing that comes to mind is this picture of just me reading the book the whole time. I constantly was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was constantly waiting for things to go wrong and just living in fear for when that happens. This review is not going in the way that I usually do because I usually break it down very systematically, but the world building in here is on another level. We get such an interesting and unique perspective because the first book is so very insular and just focusing on the Call family in a very small area, basically just trying to survive a clan war. And then the next book just expands everything so perfectly that I like the world building in here and the way the setting and all that stuff plays into the plot is just fantastic. I love what Fonda Lee though explores with her characters. She really explores some pretty bad people who do bad things, but like you can't help but rooting for them. It's interesting. I've seen a lot of discourse about Jade War and people being sort of scandalized by it, by certain actions of certain characters, and while like what they do is bad, it's by no means like thought of like to be a like it's not a good thing that the characters are doing. You're literally reading about a mafia family who's exerted control over their own country throughout their power and influence and money. So like we're not reading about good people in here, and I love them. I actually really like the development of a lot of them. You see how they change so much from the first book. A lot of them are not necessarily idealistic, but you can see how prolonged warfare and warfare of a different kind can really like change a person and actually warp a person. A prolonged sort of stalemate with a lot of political ramifications, how everyone is so changed and so exhausted by it, and watching them try and navigate and do their best. Honestly, I love it. I love these characters. I think they are so dynamic and interesting. And watching them over the span of years in one book is something that you don't get to see super often, even in fantasy. And like, God, I love it. So the plot in here is really where Fondly shines, because the plot is fantastic and goes in a way that I never would have expected. The more I think about it, the more I love the way she chose to write it, because it is a shift in a narrative style from Jade City. You might expect more upfront sort of warfare in this one, and that's not what you get. You get a lot of political maneuvering, all of the politicking and way that they try and attack one another, and the way they have to go about things and defend themselves is almost all political. And watching them maneuver the most difficult situations was honestly very stressful, but also really well done. This is going in the veins of certain favorite series that I have, of authors who have characters that I love just stressing me the hell out because of their situations are impossible, and they just literally have to make the best choice they can out of a series of bad choices. And I love that. I love witnessing and seeing how characters react from things like that, and the way where she puts them in the plot, boy does that happen. It was really well paced because it spans years, but it never really drags or feels like it's being rushed. It like hits that sweet spot that I love. Everything is dialed up in terms of its complexity. It is on an entirely different level from Jade City in terms of how complex everything is and how difficult the position that this family is put in. I also love Fondly's quality of writing. I think she put together an excellent story. In terms of her prose, I also just really enjoy just straight up her prose, especially when describing action scenes. But I love the way that she develops and saturates this atmosphere of just like tenseness. You can cut the tension in this story with a knife. It feels so tangible, and how she develops that throughout and keeps it going throughout the whole story is a thing to be admired. But there was one thing I always wanted to take back from my Jade War review, and I don't know if it's possible for me to edit it out in my like Jade City review, and that was my discussion of Fondly and the way she writes sex scenes, because I actually think she writes them fantastically, and it's some of the best I've ever come across in fantasy. Because most fantasy authors, no offense, absolutely suck at writing that. There was just one scene in particular that I thought was the lead up to things was a little bit awkward, because I don't think you should be talking about your siblings before getting railed. Weird tangent aside, I absolutely loved Jade War. It had everything I wanted and more from a sequel. It is beyond elevated. The scale has been elevated. This is just like, if Jade City was a 10, Jade War is a 100. I'm so glad I finally read it. I'm very glad that I decided to stop putting it off, because I had been putting it off because I was so nervous to read it, because it gives me great stress. And I think Jade Legacy will actually put me in my grave, but I'm looking forward to when I can do so and read it. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Jade War, and on what scale level are you dying for Jade Legacy, because I cannot wait for it. I just realized I probably read Jade War at a crappy time, because I'll probably have to reread it before Jade Legacy, but that is a problem future Isabella will have to deal with. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.